In 1699, when Bienville explored the Bay of St. Louis, there were a group of Indians living here on this bluff called the Chickapoola. Well, what about before that? Thousands of years before that? Well, there's evidence to suggest that out there, where all that water is, that a group of people may have been living out there. Come along, let's take a look. Today we want to show you something that we think is really intriguing. We're here on the beach in Bay St. Louis, Mississippi, looking out into the Bay of St. Louis. There are two rivers that empty into the bay, the Jordan River on the west side and the Wolf River on the east. The bay then joins the Mississippi Sound, which turns into the Gulf of Mexico just past the Barrier Islands. The convergence of two freshwater rivers at the mouth of a saltwater estuary would have been an ideal place for Native Americans to live and thrive. At first glance, the bay seems like any ordinary body of water, but as you walk along this stretch of beach between the Highway 90 bridge and the railroad bridge, and if you look closely at the ground, you'll notice every now and then pieces of Native American pottery scattered among the broken seashells. Where did it come from and why is it here? You would be correct to assume that there wasn't a campsite on this beach, especially since this beach didn't even exist when this pottery was made. Well, this is our opinion. Many thousands of years ago, when sea levels were much lower, almost everything you see out there was dry, except for the Jordan and Wolf River channels. We don't know where they converged, but the Jordan River probably ran somewhere close to this western shore. Three reasons why we think this. First, the city of Bay St. Louis is actually built on a bluff. This seawall was built against that bluff after Hurricane Katrina to help control erosion during storms. Second, this sand was dredged from the bottom of the bay somewhere out there, much closer to this side of the bay. During the dredging process, the dredge came into contact with an ancient midden pile that sat for thousands of years along the shore of the ancient Jordan River, and these pieces of pottery and a few arrowheads and miscellaneous pieces of chert were pumped up here to make this artificial beach. Apparently this happened in the latter stages of the pumping because we dug down several feet and sifted the sand to see how deep the pottery went. It was only on the surface, not one piece came from any deeper. Third, just up there about 50 or 60 yards from the seawall is an Indian mound. It was probably built in a later period than this pottery was made and after the sea level started to rise. But as with most all settlements of any kind, if this was a good place for one group of people to live, then it was a good place for another. That explains why the city of Bay St. Louis is here now. To us all, this is very interesting, but it should cause you to think a little bit deeper. We know most midden piles down here on the Gulf and probably everywhere are located close to the water. The village or the campsite may not have been out there by the river where the midden pile was, but was probably up here on this bluff. We know these people didn't like to live any farther from their water source than they had to, but they wanted to be out of the floodplain, so it makes sense they would have lived up here and left their trash down there. Thinking even deeper, one has to wonder, with almost everything out there in the Sound being on dry land at one time, and with a few creeks and streams running down to the Gulf, how many sites are buried underneath the silt in the Mississippi Sound? think of the artifacts that are probably out there. And it's almost enough to make me want to learn to scuba dive. If y'all been watching our videos any length of time, you know me better than that. I'm not going scuba diving. There's sharks out there and everything else. Randy and Chance may do it, and maybe even Kenneth, but not me.